He's doing so well.
Like he's
so
one of the
spry
he's one of the grandfathers in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
He is a grandpa.
Yeah,
That's what he's doing upstairs.
Right.
He's got 3 other old people, and they're all lined up in bed.
He has become a grandpa several times since we started working
This is
together.
true.
He was
Yeah.
just a youngin'
Yeah.
when we began. Hi,
And
Bob.
as we know, if you refer to someone as spry, that automatically means they're super old. And I think I just did that.
You're my, as
God.
you know, you're the only man I've been exchanging bodily show fluids with since 1903.
Yes.
And I kept
Oh, yes.
hearing during the, I only could make it through like 2 minutes of the Trump speech, but I kept hearing you're sad. You're the one that first sent me sad.
Yeah. Or Tony Atamanuik doing his Trump impression saying, somber. So somber. Because evidently the F. POTUS has mononucleosis or something. Oh, my God. Low energy, sleepy. I thought at any second he was going to take a nap right then and there. Because he does that thing where he winds down like his batteries are dying. He's like, it doesn't have anything. There's nothing there. And there's just, it just fades out, just a slow fade.
Yes, it is. It's the whispery Trump, right?
Yeah. He was whispering Trump last night.
Yeah.
And mumbly. And the funniest thing about it was he did this whole run about Joe Biden's gaffes.
Right.
Which, welcome to the 1980s, for God's sake. We've been talking about Joe Biden's gaffes for 40 years now. But the thing with Donald Trump is he immediately finishes going off about Joe Biden's gaffes and then just does this immense series of short circuits that it just made for great Twitter content last night because he was talking about how he's going to go to war for what was it? He was talking about I haven't had a war for decades and decades or something. Yeah. Then he said that Herschel Walker is a flabbleous human being. I don't know what that is. I don't know what flabbleous means.
Somebody was like, "Oh, that means Herschel Walker's definitely losing. He's going to keep his streak going."
I think I learned about Emperor Flablius in my Latin class in 10th grade. With the ancient Roman emperor Flablius.
You could hear the GOP collective like, "No, God, he mentioned Herschel. Now Herschel's toast." Yeah. I mean, how about Liz Cheney? I think she endorsed won, and everybody.
Yeah.
So far, I don't know, Trump, Cruz, you name it, DeSantis, almost all of them lost. I mean, it's Bob. We haven't talked since the what are we calling it? The light spotting, the red spotting.
We talked last week, but we didn't know what.
We didn't know the extent of it on Wednesday. But we didn't know all the results yet. It was still very, very early. But everything that we said, all the gloating that we did, it still applies.
It does.
It holds and works.
Carrie Lake.
Yeah, it's
Hello.
timeless at this point. Yeah. 3 elections in a row. Trump has been repudiated, so that's all good.
Yeah.
Carrie Lake is too silent, though, right now.
She's too quiet.
She's too quiet. Yeah, she's like the horse in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like the days you don't see him is when you're the most scared.
Well, what have we learned? It doesn't matter if she concedes.
Yeah.
Like, just ignore these idiots.
Well, she was evidently there at Mar-a-Lago vacuuming all the gold lame or whatever he's got coating the inside of that place. I did this comparison last night between that room at Mar-a-Lago, that giant conference room, whatever it is, and Liberace's bedroom. And actually, Liberace's bedroom was understated in comparison to the inside of Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Which, as we've established before, that's, it's like Trump Tower sneezed in there.
Yeah.
And that's what Mar-a-Lago looks like.
But, you and Hal and, a lot of different people have been saying, I think Palmer Report this morning was saying, he's not running. He's like, he thinks this is going to, he's obviously told people he thinks this will distract from any indictments. And it's just, I don't think he's actually going to run. Do you?
Oh, no. Well, he's pretending to, certainly, because of this advantage that he thinks it's going to give him legally. This is just another thing that he can use as an insurance policy 2 years down the road. So if he's unable to successfully stall these legal investigations of him, then 2 years down the road, if he becomes president, he can pardon himself or wiggle out of it just by being president somehow. And I think that's what he thinks. But last night, you could absolutely tell that this is one of those situations where it's like, oh, Mom, do I really got to run for president? Oh. And of course, Mom is Ivanka.
Right.
And that's in that play, thank you, end scene. Yeah. He really thinks he can wiggle out of this somehow, and it's not going to work. And this campaign, it's hilarious because he's going into this with this kind of shaky reputation with the Republican Party, and I'm kind of understating it by calling it shaky, but there's a serious financial beef that I think a lot of Republicans have with him, apart from the damaging nature of just him being him. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that he hoarded hundreds of millions of dollars with his slush fund Save America PAC, and then he made it there's a whole series of PACs that he's created, like 9 different super PACs that he's hoarding money, and hardly any of it went to any of the Republican candidates. And the money that did go to Republican candidates in this cycle went only to candidates who were already saturated with money in the first place. Yeah. Didn't really go to any competitive districts. Didn't really go to, Yeah,
and people pointed out some of the ones that endorsed that did win, they were in like deeply red districts are going to win anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
But anyway, I just love
fancy that.
You chimed in on the media. This was an actual New York Times headline. President Biden feels buoyant after the better-than-expected midterms, but as he nears his 80th birthday, he confronts a decision on whether to run in 2024 that has some Democrats uncomfortable. And you just said, another classic by the New York Times pitch bot. Oh, it's not the pitch bot. It's real.
Not the pitch bot. That was the real.
Right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump is 4 years younger. Right? They're roughly the same age. Chuck Grassley, I don't even know if you can carbon date him. I mean, it is astounding.
Chuck Grassley is 11 billion years old.
Thank you.
That's Chuck Grassley's accurate age. And you know it when you see him tweet. He's got the best. Hey, look, you know what? You might not like Chuck Grassley, but if you need to be entertained, there's no better Twitter feed than Chuck Grassley, where he just it's almost as if his great-grandchildren have gotten their hands on his phone and have just started typing random emojis and characters, and just his Twitter feed is I don't know if you've ever seen someone drunk tweet.
Yes.
But it's kind of like that, only less coherent.
Yes. His Twitter style is spry.
Yes, exactly. But Bob, as you point out, it's the whole party. Bill Pascrell Jr. said 3 Republican judges just blocked debt forgiveness because Republicans are trying to ruin the lives of millions of working Americans out of pure spite. And you just said the political suicide continues. I mean, now their idea is Rick Scott instead of McConnell. Rick Scott, who has said we're going to destroy Social Security and Medicare. I mean, it's
right. They keep doing the same thing that they were just repudiated for, the same a-hole kind of behavior. I mean, right out of the chute, Donald Trump's running for president again. I mean, that's the one thing. I think that was, by and large, something, because I guess you can kind of lump that in with the issue of democracy, because Donald Trump has been such an existential threat to democracy. Right out of the chute, after being repudiated for being anti-democratic, Donald Trump runs for president again. Jesse Waters doubles down on this ridiculousness about single women. Jack Posobiec is talking about how Democrats want to turn everyone into trans women. It's just, they're doing the same things, and I don't know that they're able to change, which is of course going to be good news for the rest of us, because voters are now rejecting all of that, all of it.
You quote tweeted Judge Boxwan, Jeanine Pirro, who said, the other thing's abortion. It was all about abortion. Joe Biden didn't do abortion. Abortion just fell out of the Supreme Court for whatever reason. It was in May or June of this year, and that was it. That's all the Democrats needed. And you just said, holy effing... Abortion just kind of fell out of the Supreme Court for whatever reason. I can name a bunch of reasons, Judge Boxwine, and each one includes misogyny, far-right Christians, and rakes. Lots of rakes. They just keep walking through the abortion rake factory, right?
Yeah, I wonder if they wish they could have a do-over on the whole Roe issue. I wonder if that gamble worked out for them. I mean, between 1980 and now, they've really been driving toward that decision, the Dobbs decision. And now that they've got it, it's got to be one of those things where now that they're seeing the consequences electorally, I wonder if they're going, why did we do that again? Can someone remind me?
And I love all the headlines that GOP sad and confused.
Yeah, sad, sleepy.
But
sleepy.
I love somebody was talking about, Twitter followings, yard signs, whatever. You said because both of those things you mentioned have zero bearing on electoral outcomes, just like yard signs and boat parades.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
The barometers they keep trying to use they couldn't possibly have actually lost, right?
Yeah. I think Charlie Kirk yesterday was tweeting about how, how is this possible that Kerry Lake lost this election because, oh my God, the crowds. Well,
right.
And they were also comparing Kerry Lake's following on Twitter versus Katie Hobbs' following on Twitter, as if that is any sort of valid metric. We've been talking about this for decades now. Yard signs don't matter. Crowd sizes don't matter. Online polls don't matter. And now in the age of Donald Trump, boat parades absolutely don't matter. Truck parades don't matter either. You can't rely on that as a valid metric. Polls are somehow more accurate than all of that, if you're going to predict an election. And the polls, as we've seen, were terrible.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So here we are, as I was saying in the first segment, at this moment in our history where we have an absolutely criminal ex-president who is under investigation for espionage, conspiracy to, what is the official thing, to defraud the United States for January 6th, insurrection.
Sedition.
Right, sedition. Sedition and
yeah.
espionage. And, you were quote-tweeted the headline, investigators see ego, not money, as Trump's motive on classified papers, on stealing. And you said more like 10% ego, 90% blackmail. Trump is transactional, except this one thing. I don't buy it. Trump's motivation is always, how can I personally benefit from fill in the blank in terms of money and power, including perceived advantage over his enemies.
Yeah. That's why he does everything. Everything he does is calculated based on that. I mean, it's not breaking news. It's like, oh, yeah, Donald Trump has funny hair. Yes, we know he has funny hair. Yes, we know he's transactional. This is all a given. That is all established.
Yeah.
And to say that, oh, yeah, he went through these lengths, defying the Department of Justice, risking federal prison, for God's sake, in order to assuage his ego, in order to do the whole Daffy Duck mine thing, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. He did this for very specific reasons. I'm so positive that the documents that he either stole or had been looking at throughout his 4 years as president had to do with blackmailing his enemies and allies alike. I think that explains things like Lindsey Graham. Yeah. Why Lindsey Graham turned on a dime so quickly after John McCain died. And then, of course, documentation that would maybe be used as a dead man's switch. If he gets indicted, he can say, well, I'm going to release this nuclear information into the public, and then you're really going to be sorry. And so this is how he thinks. Like, what is going to be the best?
Michael Cohen said the same thing. You're right, Bob.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I would listen to Michael Cohen when it comes to, Michael Cohen was in the room with some of the worst things that Donald Trump has done in his life.
Yeah.
So when Michael Cohen says he's all about the blackmail, he's all about personal advantage, power, wealth, you got to take that to the bank. That's absolutely accurate. So this story, I would disregard this story.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob, you know what's essential? The Bob Cesca Show.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I'm getting on my bike right after I talk to you live and listening to Memorex U.
Okay, good. Well, have a good ride.
Sexy Liberal Podcast Network, and we love you, superhero Bob Cesca.